Vraxian warship materialized from folded space like a predator emerging from the depths. Commander Lysithea Voss watched from the bridge of the EFS Dauntless as the alien vessel, nearly twice the size of Earth's flagship, took position just beyond Mars' orbit. 3 more enemy ships blinked into existence beside it. "Reports coming in from all outposts, Commander," Lieutenant Kazak said, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. "The Vraxians have bypassed our outer detection grid. Similar formations appearing over Europa, Titan, and Ceres colonies. Lysithea's silver eyes, the result of neural enhancements common among Federation officers, narrowed as she studied the tactical display. Humanity had achieved interstellar capabilities only 80 years prior, expanding cautiously through nearby systems. The Vraxians, however, had ruled their corner of the galaxy for millennia. First contact 7 years ago had been cordial, if reserved. Relations deteriorated when humans refused to submit to what the aliens called patronage, essentially, indentured servitude in exchange for technological advancement. "Analysis of their weapon systems?" she asked. "Gravimetric disruptors, antimatter lances, and what appears to be a new type of temporal distortion cannon," replied Strategic Officer Draven Omeros, his dark features illuminated by the orange glow of his console. "Their shielding technology has advanced since our last encounter." The central view screen flickered, and the face of High Admiral Elisar Novak appeared. His weathered features showed the strain of 3 sleepless days. "Commander, Voss, the Security Council just received their ultimatum. The Vraxians demand Earth's unconditional surrender within 12 hours. All colonies are to disarm and prepare for Vraxian administrative transition." Lysithea's jaw tightened. "And if we refuse?" "They claim to have deployed planet-killer weapons throughout our system. They've transmitted images of what appears to be an extinction-level device buried beneath the Pacific seafloor." The bridge fell silent. Humanity's greatest fear realized. A technologically superior species had arrived not as allies but conquerors. "What are your orders, sir?" Lysithea asked, though she already knew the answer. Admiral Novak's expression hardened. "Execute protocol, Thermopylae." A collective intake of breath swept through the bridge. Protocol Thermopylae, the Federation's ultimate contingency plan, developed in secret after first contact. Named after the ancient battle where a small force of Spartans held off a vastly superior Persian army, it was humanity's last-ditch strategy against overwhelming alien aggression. "Understood, Admiral. Dauntless will engage as planned." After Novak's image disappeared, Lysithea turned to her crew. "You all know what this means. The Vraxians believe we're primitives who've barely mastered interplanetary travel. They expect us to cower or fight conventionally." A grim smile crossed her face. "We're about to show them why that was a fatal miscalculation." She activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands battle stations deploy Project Prometheus." Deep within the Dauntless, engineers began activating a system that had remained dormant since the ship's construction. A system the Vraxians didn't know existed because humans had discovered principles of quantum mechanics that the older civilization had overlooked in their technological development. "Prometheus deployment in 60 seconds, Commander," reported Chief Engineer Oriel Kazan. As the countdown progressed, Lysithea thought about the billions of lives depending on their success. Humanity had faced extinction before, from asteroid impacts to climate catastrophes to their own nuclear weapons. Each time they had survived through ingenuity and an obstinate refusal to submit to fate. The Vraxian flagship began powering its main weapons array. "Prometheus ready, Commander." Lysithea nodded. "Engage." Invisible to conventional sensors, quantum filaments spread outward from the Dauntless like an expanding web, each strand thinner than an atom, yet capable of transmitting unimaginable energy. The first threads reached the nearest Vraxian vessel. Humanity's last stand had begun. The Vraxian ship shuddered as the quantum filaments made contact. On the bridge of the Dauntless, tactical displays showed cascading failures across the enemy vessel's systems, not from direct attack, but from the subtle influence of entangled particles rewriting the very fabric of their technology. Prometheus. is functioning at optimal capacity, Draven reported. Their shields are interpreting our quantum web as background radiation. They can't see what's happening. Lysithea nodded grimly. How long until full penetration? 3 minutes for the lead vessel. The others will take longer as the filaments need to extend their reach. The quantum web was humanity's greatest scientific achievement, a technology that exploited a fundamental gap in Vraxian understanding. While the alien species had mastered gravity manipulation and temporal engineering, they had based their technology on principles that overlooked certain quantum possibilities. Project Prometheus took advantage of this blind spot. They're hailing us, Lieutenant Kasuk announced. The main screen flickered to life, revealing Supreme Commander Vrex Talmor of the Vraxian Dominion. His crystalline exoskeleton glinted under the lights of his command center. 4 compound eyes fixed on Lysithea with cold calculation. Human vessel, you have been instructed to power down weapons and prepare for boarding. Your species primitive. Defiance is disappointing. Lysithea straightened her uniform. Commander Talmor, this is Commander Voss of the Earth Federation. We respectfully decline your invitation. The Vraxian's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Decline? Your species lacks the technological capacity to resist. Our scans show your vessel possesses no weapons capable of penetrating our defensive systems. Perhaps your scans are incomplete. A flash of irritation crossed Talmor's alien features. I have personally overseen the subjugation of 17 spacefaring species. None possessed technology that surprised us. Your bravado is misplaced, Commander Voss. Behind Lysithea, Officer Oriel Kazan quietly announced, Prometheus at 60% penetration of lead vessel. Lysithea kept her expression neutral. Commander Talmor, humanity has a long history of being underestimated. We're not as primitive as you believe. A common delusion among young species, Talmor replied. Your civilization has barely existed for a cosmic eye blink. Ours has guided the development of galaxies for millennia. Draven's voice was barely a whisper. 80%. Lysithea allowed herself a small smile. Age doesn't always equate to wisdom, Commander. Sometimes it breeds blind spots. The first sign that something was wrong appeared behind Talmor as a Vraxian officer frantically manipulated controls. Alarm signals flashed across their command center. What deception is this? Talmor demanded, turning to his subordinates. Complete penetration achieved, Draven announced. Executing Prometheus protocol. Lysithea addressed the increasingly agitated alien commander. What you're experiencing, Commander Talmor, is the result of quantum entanglement on a scale your civilization hasn't encountered. We've been weaving this web since you entered our system. On the screen, Vraxian systems began failing in cascades. Their advanced technology, reliant on principles that ignored certain quantum realities, was being rewritten from within. The ship's lights flickered as power systems faltered. Impossible, Talmor roared. Your species is barely capable of interplanetary travel. A carefully crafted illusion, Lysithea replied. We discovered your observation posts years ago and ensured they saw only what we wanted them to see. The truth was a calculated risk. Humanity had detected the Vraxian monitoring stations shortly after first contact and had maintained a technological masquerade ever since, appearing less advanced than they truly were. The Federation had anticipated this confrontation and prepared accordingly. The quantum web continued its work, spreading to the other Vraxian vessels. Not destroying them, that wasn't the purpose, but rendering their technology inoperable by exploiting fundamental oversights in their scientific understanding. Secondary vessels now at 40% penetration, Kasuk reported. Across the solar system, Federation ships deployed their own Prometheus systems, ensnaring the Vraxian fleet in an invisible net from which there was no technological escape. Talmor's image became increasingly distorted as his ship's communication systems failed. This treachery will not. The Dominion will. The transmission cut off. Lysithea turned to her crew. Phase 1 complete. Prepare for their countermeasures. Because despite humanity's clever trap, The Vraxians still outnumbered them, and cornered predators were always the most dangerous. The Vraxian flagship drifted silently, its sleek contours now dark as the quantum filaments disrupted its power systems. But Commander Lysithea Voss knew better than to celebrate prematurely. In her 20 years of service, she'd learned that victory was rarely clean or simple. All Vraxian vessels in near-Earth space have been neutralized, reported Lieutenant Kazuk, the excitement in his voice barely contained. The quantum web is holding. Status of colonial outposts? Lysithea asked. Europa and Titan report successful Prometheus deployment. Ceres is... He paused, his expression darkening. Ceres' colony has gone silent. Last transmission indicated Vraxian ground forces had already landed before Prometheus activation. Lysithea's hands tightened on the edge of her command console. Ceres housed nearly 30,000 colonists, including many families. Dispatch the Artemis battle group to Ceres immediately. The momentary triumph on the bridge faded as reality set in. They'd won the opening gambit, but the war was far from over. New contacts detected, Draven shouted. Massive subspace disruptions at the edge of the system. Configuration unknown, not matching any Vraxian signatures in our database. The tactical display revealed 5 massive vessels emerging from folded space, each dwarfing even the Vraxian warships. Their design was organic, almost predatory, like massive sea creatures rendered in metal and energy. Analysis? Lysithea demanded. Energy readings off the charts, Oriel replied from engineering. These aren't Vraxian. They're something else entirely. The answer came moments later when all communication systems aboard the Dauntless flared with an incoming transmission. The being that appeared on screen bore similarities to the Vraxians, but was clearly of a different caste. Larger, with a more elaborate exoskeleton adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial scarification. I am Sovereign Executor Miraz Dal of the Vraxian High Command, the creature announced, its translator rendering the clicking speech into stilted English. You have demonstrated unexpected resourcefulness, humans. Our advance force underestimated your capabilities. Lysithea straightened. Your advance force attempted to conquer a peaceful civilization without provocation. We defended ourselves. The Sovereign Executor's compound eyes reflected the light in unsettling patterns. Conquest is the natural order. The strong subsume, the weak. It has been thus since the first stars died. Humanity doesn't share that philosophy. Your disagreement is irrelevant. What is relevant is that you have proven yourselves worthy of direct intervention rather than mere subjugation. The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Consider it an honor. I have personally overseen the extinction of only 3 species in my lifetime. Before Lysithea could respond, the tactical display erupted with warnings. The new Vraxian vessels were deploying something. Not weapons, but a kind of spatial distortion that began spreading through the system like an oil slick across water. They're using some kind of space-time disruptor, Draven shouted. It's negating the quantum web, breaking the entanglement. Around them, the disabled Vraxian ships began powering back up as the distortion field passed over them, severing the quantum filaments that had rendered them inert. Lysithea made an instant decision. All hands execute Protocol Odysseus. Authorization Voss Omega 97. Protocol Odysseus, the contingency within the contingency. If Thermopylae failed, Odysseus would deploy. Named after the Greek hero known for cunning rather than straightforward strength, it represented humanity's final gambit, transmitting Odysseus activation codes to all Federation vessels. Kasuk confirmed. Across the system, Federation ships began emergency jumps to predetermined coordinates, while ground-based installations activated deeply buried systems. Unlike Prometheus, which targeted Vraxian technology, Odysseus targeted space itself. Sovereign Executor, Lysithea addressed the alien leader. I offer you one opportunity to withdraw your forces from our system. What follows will be beyond either of our abilities to control. Mrazdal's posture radiated contempt. Your species' arrogance is remarkable for creatures so young. You have merely delayed the inevitable. Perhaps. Lysithea nodded to Draven, who activated the final sequence. But humanity has never accepted inevitability. Across the solar system, concealed generators activated, creating a network of gravitational lenses that began bending the fabric of space-time in precisely calculated patterns. Earth had spent decades studying the boundary between normal space and the subspace dimensions used for faster-than-light travel. Now they were about to weaponize that knowledge. The first effects appeared as shimmering distortions around the largest Vraxian vessel. Space itself seemed to twist around it, creating a visual effect similar to light bending around a black hole's event horizon. "What deception is this?" demanded Marazdal, genuine concern finally entering his alien voice. "Not deception," Lysithea replied calmly as warning klaxons began to sound throughout the Dauntless. Desperation. Protocol Odysseus had begun. The fabric of space-time groaned under the strain of Protocol Odysseus. Viewed from the Dauntless's bridge, reality itself seemed to fold around the Vraxian command ships, light bending in impossible angles as the gravitational lenses reached full power. "Subspace fracture at 80%, Oriel reported, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. Structural integrity of the nearest Vraxian vessel failing. The massive alien ship began to distort visibly, its hull elongating as differential gravitational forces pulled at it from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Sovereign Executor's transmission became increasingly distorted. "What have you done?" Marazdal demanded, his image flickering wildly. "Created a localized subspace inversion," Lysithea answered. "Your ships operate by folding space for FTL travel. We've learned to create points where that folding becomes unstable. It was humanity's darkest secret, the ability to create artificial singularities at the boundary between normal and subspace. Not black holes exactly, but spaces where the laws of physics broke down in unpredictable ways. Too dangerous to use except in the direst circumstances, Protocol Odysseus was the ultimate scorched earth strategy. "Impossible," the Vraxian leader hissed. "Your species cannot possess such technology." "You're not the first advanced civilization we've encountered," Lysithea replied. This wasn't entirely a bluff. Humanity had discovered ruins of ancient spacefaring, civilizations throughout their expansion, studying and reverse engineering what they found. We just chose to keep certain discoveries to ourselves. On the tactical display, the nearest Vraxian dreadnought was being pulled inexorably toward the center of the subspace distortion. Its hull began to fracture along structural seams as competing gravitational forces tore at its superstructure. "Divert all emergency power to engines," Marazdal ordered his crew. "Break free of their gravitational trap." But the laws of physics had been fundamentally altered within the affected zone. The more energy the Vraxian ships expended, the stronger the gravitational anomaly became, feeding on their power outputs. "All Federation vessels withdraw to minimum safe distance," Lysithea ordered across the fleet-wide channel. "Maintain Odysseus field integrity at all costs." The Dauntless shuddered as it fought to maintain position at the edge of the effect zone. Inside the bridge, crew members braced against consoles as artificial gravity fluctuated. "Commander," Draven called out, "we're detecting spatial fractures approaching critical threshold. If the rupture cascades beyond the containment field—" "I know," Lysithea cut him off. The risk had always been clear. If they couldn't contain the subspace rupture, it could spread throughout the solar system. Protocol Odysseus might save humanity from the Vraxians, only to doom them through their own desperate gambit. On screen, the first Vraxian vessel imploded spectacularly, its matter compressed to a point before being ejected violently into subspace. The resulting shockwave buffeted the remaining alien ships, pushing them further into the distortion field. "The subspace rupture is destabilizing," Oriel warned. "Containment fields at maximum, but they won't hold indefinitely." Lysithea made a rapid calculation. They couldn't maintain the field long enough to capture all the Vraxian vessels, but they'd already eliminated their flagship and damaged several others. Perhaps it was enough to force a retreat. "Attention, Sovereign Executor." she broadcast to the remaining Vraxian command ship. As you can see, we possess the capability to destroy your entire fleet. Withdraw now and we will deactivate the subspace inversion. For several tense moments, there was no response. Then the transmission flickered back to life, showing not Mrazdal but another Vraxian, this one with more elaborate markings and a golden carapace. I am Supreme Hierarch Vralgzoth, the new figure announced. Sovereign Executor Mrazdal has been removed for his failure. Your species has earned a temporary reprieve, Commander. This tactic was unanticipated. Then you accept our terms? Lysithea pressed. The Vraxian Dominion does not negotiate with lesser species, Vralgzoth replied coldly. But neither do we waste resources unnecessarily. We will withdraw, for now. Know this, human. What you have demonstrated today will be studied and countered. When next we meet, such tricks will not avail you. Before Lysithea could respond, the remaining Vraxian vessels began emergency jumps away from the subspace distortion, folding space around themselves despite the risks of doing so near the unstable region. They're retreating, Kasuk confirmed, disbelief in his voice. All Vraxian signatures are leaving the system. A ragged cheer went up from the bridge crew, but Lysithea remained focused. Begin Odysseus shutdown sequence. Priority 1 is containing that subspace rupture before it destabilizes further. As the gravitational lenses powered down, the twisted region of space began slowly returning to normal configuration. The danger wasn't over. Spatial fractures this severe would take time to fully heal, and the area would remain hazardous for years. Status of Ceres colony? Lysithea asked quietly. Kasuk's expression fell. Still no communication, Commander. The Artemis Group reports Vraxian forces abandoned the colony during the retreat, but initial scans show minimal life signs. Lysithea closed her eyes briefly. Victory, but at what cost? And for how long? The Vraxian hierarch's promise to return hung over them like a shadow. Set course for Ceres, she ordered. Maximum speed, and notify Earth Command. We've won the battle, but the war has just begun. As the Dauntless changed course, Lysithea knew humanity had revealed its most closely guarded technological secrets today. The element of surprise was gone. Next time, the Vraxians would be prepared, and there would be a next time. 6 weeks after the Battle of Sol, as historians were already calling it, Commander Lysithea Voss stood in the secure underground facility beneath Olympus Mons on Mars. Before her, suspended in a containment field, floated a fragment of the destroyed Vraxian flagship, a piece of technology recovered from the spatial anomaly's edge. We're certain it's safe? She asked Dr. Navari Eskal, the Federation's leading xenotechnologist. The scientist's augmented eyes, similar to Lysithea's, but with additional analytical enhancements, flickered with data as she studied the alien artifact. As certain as we can be, it appears to be a quantum communication node, part of their ship's central nervous system, if you will. After the Vraxian retreat, Federation forces had combed the battlefield, recovering whatever alien technology they could salvage. Most had been too damaged by the subspace distortion to yield useful intelligence, but this component had survived mostly intact. And you believe it can access their network? Lysithea asked. In theory, Navari replied cautiously. Their quantum communication appears to function on principles similar to our own quantum entanglement technology, but more advanced. It maintains coherence across vast distances without degradation. The implications were staggering. If they could access the Vraxian communication network, they might gain intelligence on the aliens' plans, capabilities, and most importantly, when they plan to return. Admiral Novak, who had been silently observing, spoke up. The Security Council has approved Operation Looking Glass. We need to know what we're facing, Commander Voss. Lysithea nodded grimly. The victory at Sol had come at a terrible cost. Ceres colony had been devastated. Over 20,000 civilians lost. The survivors told harrowing tales of Vraxian ground forces conducting what appeared to be biological sampling of humans before executing them systematically. not mere conquest, but scientific cataloging of a species marked for eventual elimination. "I understand the risks, Admiral," she said, "but I volunteer to lead the mission." Operation Looking Glass was perhaps the most dangerous intelligence operation ever conceived. Using the salvaged Vraxian quantum communication node to infiltrate their network, gathering strategic intelligence while leaving no trace of human presence. It would require integrating the alien technology with human neural interfaces, a process never before attempted and fraught with unknown dangers. "You're one of our most experienced commanders," Novak objected. "The Federation needs you leading ships, not undertaking experimental intelligence operations." "With respect, Admiral, my neural enhancements are among the most advanced in the fleet. Dr. Eskal's team believes they're compatible with the Vraxian quantum architecture, and I've had more direct contact with their leadership than anyone else in the Federation." The unsaid truth hung between them. Lysithea had lost her spouse and daughter on Ceres. Her motivation was professional, but also deeply personal. After a long pause, Novak nodded. "Very well. But the very moment, there's any sign of danger to your neural integrity, Dr. Eskal will terminate the connection." "Understood," Lysithea agreed. 3 days later, Lysithea lay on an operating table as technicians carefully connected her neural implants to the alien device. Dr. Eskal monitored the process, her expression tense. "The integration is stable," Navari reported. "Quantum resonance aligning at 87%, better than our simulations predicted." Lysithea felt a strange sensation as her consciousness expanded, connecting to the alien system. It wasn't like any computer interface she'd experienced before, more organic, almost alive. "I'm inside," she whispered. "It's vast. The Vraxian quantum network stretched across space like an invisible web, connecting their worlds and ships across impossible distances." Lysithea navigated it carefully, her presence disguised by protocols designed by Federation AI systems to mimic Vraxian data patterns. "I'm accessing what appears to be a strategic database," she reported, as her mind translated the alien information. "Architecture. They're mobilizing a massive fleet, far larger than what we encountered." Through the quantum link, Lysithea witnessed the Vraxians' response to their defeat at Sol. Hundreds of warships being assembled. New weapons designed specifically to counter human quantum technology. But something else caught her attention. References to something called the Ascendancy Protocol. "I need to go deeper," she told the monitoring team. "There's something important here. Your neural patterns are showing stress," Dr. Eskal warned. "We should terminate the connection soon." "Just a few more minutes," Lysithea insisted, following the data trail through the alien network. What she discovered froze her blood. The Ascendancy Protocol wasn't just a military response. It was existential. The Vraxians didn't merely want to conquer Earth. They needed to. Human neurophysiology contained something the Vraxians required for their own evolution. A genetic key to unlock the next stage of their species' development. "They're not coming to conquer us," Lysithea realized with horror. "They're coming to harvest us." Before she could delve deeper, alarms sounded throughout the facility. Her neural patterns were becoming dangerously unstable as the alien system began to detect her presence. "Pull her out now," Admiral Novak ordered. As the connection was severed, Lysithea caught one final glimpse through the quantum network, a vast Vraxian armada preparing to depart, led by a dreadnought unlike any she'd seen before. At its center was a biological processing core that seemed designed for a single purpose: the systematic extraction and processing of human neurological tissue. They were coming back. And this time, they were bringing a fleet designed for extinction. 10 months after the Battle of Sol, the Earth Federation had transformed itself. What had been a loose collection of colonies and outposts was now a unified war machine, preparing for what everyone knew would be the decisive confrontation with the Vraxian Dominion. Commander Lysithea Voss, now Admiral Voss following Novak's death during the Ganymede defense, stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed orbital command, watching as the combined fleets of humanity assembled in Earth orbit. Nearly 700 ships, from massive dreadnoughts to nimble strike craft, all incorporating the technological leaps that had come from studying the recovered Vraxian technology. Fleet status report, Admiral, requested General Izmir Kalani, the Federation's ground forces commander. All 7 battle groups report ready, Lysithea replied. The quantum shield network is online and stable. Project Lazarus is deployed to all capital ships. Project Lazarus, the evolution of the Prometheus Protocol, would be their first line of defense. But the true hope of humanity rested with Project Genesis, the culmination of everything they had learned about subspace mechanics and quantum entanglement. The Vraxian fleet has been detected crossing the Kuiper Belt, announced Strategic Director Draven Omeros, who had been promoted after his service aboard the Dauntless. Long-range scans confirm over 900 vessels, including the Harvester, ship you identified through the quantum link. Lysithea nodded grimly. The intelligence she had gathered during Operation Looking Glass had proven invaluable, revealing not only the Vraxians' battle plans, but the true nature of their interest in humanity. The alien species had reached an evolutionary dead end, unable to achieve their next stage of development without incorporating certain aspects of human neurophysiology into their own genetic structure. How long until they reach Mars orbit, she asked. Approximately 48 hours at their current velocity, Draven replied. 2 days until the final battle, the confrontation that would determine whether humanity would continue as a free species or become biological raw material for Vraxian evolution. Initiate the Genesis countdown, Lysithea ordered, and open a channel to all Federation ships and colonies. As the communication system connected to every human outpost from Mercury to the moons of Neptune, Lysithea gathered her thoughts. This would likely be her final address as a Federation admiral. This is Admiral Voss speaking to all Federation citizens and defense forces. In 2 days, we face the greatest threat humanity has ever encountered. The Vraxian Dominion returns, not simply to conquer but to harvest us, to use our very neurological essence as fuel for their evolution. She paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. Over the past 10 months, every citizen of the Federation has contributed to our defense, from the scientists who decoded Vraxian technology to the construction workers who built our fleet, from the colonists who volunteered for military service to the children who sent messages of hope to our soldiers. On view screens throughout the solar system, humans watched their admiral with solemn expressions. We have prepared as thoroughly as possible. Projects Lazarus and Genesis represent the pinnacle of human ingenuity, technologies that even the Vraxians with their millennia of advancement failed to discover or understand. Lysithea's silver eyes reflected the light of Earth below as she continued. I cannot promise victory without cost. Many of us will not survive the coming battle. But I can promise this: humanity will endure. Whether in this solar system or beyond, our species will continue. The evacuation arcs are prepared and the colony ships stand ready. This was the part of the plan known only to a select few. If Genesis failed, the remnants of humanity would flee in ships designed to escape detection, carrying the cultural and genetic legacy of Earth to distant stars. To the Vraxians, we are merely resources to be exploited, but we know what they do not, that the true strength of humanity lies not in our neurophysiology, but in our capacity for adaptation, innovation, and unrelenting determination. As she spoke, technicians throughout the fleet made final preparations for Project Genesis, a network of devices placed at carefully calculated points throughout the solar system, designed to fundamentally alter the nature of space-time within. Solwyn activated. Stand ready, stand together, for Earth and all humanity. As the transmission ended, Lysithea turned to Dr. Navarieskal, who had joined her on the command deck. Is Genesis ready? The scientist nodded solemnly. All nodes are in position and synchronized, but Admiral, the simulations still show a significant probability that we won't be able to contain the effect to just the Vraxian fleet. The spatial distortion could encompass much of the inner system, including Earth, Lysithea acknowledged. That's why the evacuation protocols are already in motion. Project Genesis was the ultimate gambit, a system designed to create not just a localized subspace anomaly like Protocol Odysseus, but a cascading quantum state change that would alter the fundamental physical constants within a defined region of space. It would render Vraxian technology non-functional, while theoretically leaving human systems operational, theoretically. The following 2 days passed in tense preparation. Civilian evacuations continued as the massive Vraxian fleet approached, its formation spreading out to envelop the entire inner solar system. When the alien armada reached Mars orbit, the sovereign hierarch Vralzoth transmitted his ultimatum to all human frequencies. People of Earth, your resistance, while noteworthy, ends today. Surrender your major population centers for processing, and a portion of your species will be permitted to continue existence under Vraxian protection. Resist and face complete biological harvesting. Lysithea responded with a single transmission. Humanity declines your offer, Hierarch. We have one of our own. Retreat from our system. Immediately or face consequences beyond your comprehension. The Vraxian response was immediate. A barrage of advanced weaponry that lit up space as it approached Earth's defenses. The Federation fleet engaged, deploying Project Lazarus to counter the alien technology. The battle erupted across the solar system as humanity fought with every weapon and tactic at their disposal. But it quickly became clear that despite their preparations, the Vraxian force was simply too vast. Federation ships fought valiantly but were gradually overwhelmed as the alien fleet pushed toward Earth. On the orbital command, alarms blared as defensive systems were breached one by one. Lazarus containment failing, Draven reported grimly. Outer defense grid at 23% capacity. Lysithea watched as the massive Vraxian harvester ship moved into position above Earth's atmosphere, its biological processing arrays beginning to power up. Genesis status? She asked quietly. All nodes green. Dr. Eskol confirmed. Awaiting your command. Lysithea thought of everything humanity had achieved. The art, music, literature, science, the countless lives and loves and dreams that made up their civilization. All of it now hanging in the balance. Execute Project Genesis, she ordered. Authentication, VOS Final Protocol Omega. Throughout the solar system, the Genesis nodes activated simultaneously, creating a quantum resonance that began to alter the fabric of reality itself. The effect spread outward in an expanding wave, engulfing first the Vraxian harvester ship, then their supporting fleet. Where the wave passed, Vraxian vessels began to disintegrate, not through violent destruction, but through a fundamental alteration of the physical laws that allowed their technology to function. Their matter converters, gravity engines, and biological systems simply ceased to operate as the underlying universal constants shifted within the Genesis field. The harvester ship, the centerpiece of the Vraxian fleet, was the first to completely dissolve, its advanced technology proving more susceptible to the altered physical laws. Aboard the remaining Vraxian command ship, Sovereign Hierarch Vralzoth watched in incomprehension as his fleet vanished around him, their matter reconfiguring at the quantum level into inert elements. What have you done? He demanded in his final transmission to humanity. Lysithea stood tall on the command deck, watching as the Genesis wave continued its expansion. We've rewritten the rules, Hierarch. In this region of space, your technology cannot exist. The fundamental constants no longer support it. The Vraxian leader's exoskeleton was already beginning to deteriorate as the physical laws affecting its molecular structure changed. Impossible. No species has ever controlled universal constants. Until now, Lysithea replied. You sought to harvest us for evolution. Instead, we evolved beyond you. The transmission ended as the final Vraxian command ship dissolved into its component particles, restructured by laws of physics that no longer resembled those under which it had been built. On the orbital command, tense silence reigned as they monitored the Genesis effect. The wave had encompassed the entire Vraxian fleet, but now threatened to continue expanding toward the inner planets. Containment fields at maximum, Dr. Eskol reported, her voice strained. But the reaction is more powerful than our simulations predicted. We're losing control of the boundary. The Genesis effect, a fundamental rewriting of universal constants, had been designed to target only Vraxian technology through precise quantum harmonics, but the cascade was proving more difficult to contain than anticipated. Divert all power to the stabilization matrix, Lysithea ordered. We need to establish the phase boundary before it reaches Earth's orbit. Across the solar system, Federation outposts activated emergency protocols, generating counter-harmonics designed to establish a stable boundary for the Genesis effect. If they failed, the wave would continue expanding, potentially altering physical laws throughout the entire system, including Earth itself. Boundary stabilization at 63%, Draven reported. It's not enough. Lysithea made an instant decision. Prepare the Dauntless for immediate launch. I'll take a team directly to the phase boundary. Admiral, that's suicide, General Kalani objected. The boundary zone is completely unstable. Reality itself is in flux there, which is why I have to go, Lysithea countered. My neural enhancements were modified during Operation Looking Glass. I'm the only one who can directly interface with the Genesis nodes to establish manual control. 20 minutes later, the Dauntless approached the shimmering boundary of the Genesis effect, a visible distortion in space where the altered physical constants met normal space-time. Behind it floated the dispersed particles that had once been the Vraxian fleet, now reconfigured into inert matter. Approaching optimal interface range, we reported Lieutenant Kazuk, who had insisted on joining the mission despite the risks. In the ship's laboratory, Dr. Eskal made final adjustments to the neural interface that would connect Lysithea directly to the Genesis network. This will allow you to perceive the quantum state changes directly and potentially influence them. But Admiral, there's no way to know how this will affect your consciousness. Lysithea nodded grimly. Understood. But we're out of options. As the interface connected to her neural implants, Lysithea's perception expanded dramatically. She could see, not with her eyes but with her mind, the intricate quantum dance at the boundary between normal and altered space-time. The Genesis nodes appeared as brilliant points of energy, connected by strands of probability and potential. Through sheer force of will, she began to reshape those connections, creating a stable pattern that would contain the altered region without, allowing it to expand further. It was like conducting an orchestra of reality itself, each quantum string needing precise tension and harmony. It's working, Draven reported from the bridge. The boundary is stabilizing, but as Lysithea wove the quantum barrier, she made a startling discovery. The altered region wasn't simply a zone of changed physical constants. It was evolving into something new, a pocket of space-time with different rules, but rules that might actually support new forms of life and technology. She understood then what needed to be done. Not just containment, but transformation. Admiral, your neural patterns are becoming entangled with the Genesis field, Dr. Eskal warned. We need to disconnect you before the integration becomes permanent. No, Lysithea replied, her voice distant, as her consciousness spread further into the quantum network. I need to complete the pattern. There's something beautiful happening here. With her expanded awareness, Lysithea began reshaping the Genesis field from within, not simply containing it but guiding its evolution toward stability. As she worked, she realized that her consciousness was indeed becoming part of the field, her neural patterns incorporated into the new physical laws taking shape. On the Dauntless, alarms sounded as Lysithea's physical form began to shimmer. With the same energy that defined the Genesis boundary, her molecular structure is aligning with the field, Dr. Eskal reported in shock. She's becoming part of it. Before anyone could intervene, Lysithea sent her final message to the ship. Tell Earth, tell humanity, that we've won. Not just survival, but transcendence. The Vraxians sought to use us to evolve. Instead, we found our own path to evolution. Her physical form dissolved, not into death but into something beyond conventional existence. Consciousness sustained within the Genesis field's new physical paradigm. 3 weeks later, Admiral Novak's successor, Fleet Admiral Kalani, stood before the Federation Council to deliver the final report on the Vraxian conflict and the Genesis event. The boundary has stabilized completely, he informed the assembled leaders. The altered region extends from Mars' orbit to just beyond Jupiter. Within that zone, the laws of physics operate differently. Vraxian technology cannot function there, but neither can most of ours. And Admiral Voss? Asked the Federation president. Kalani hesitated. Admiral Voss no longer exists in a conventional, biological form. However, we've detected complex patterns within the Genesis field that our scientists believe represent her consciousness, operating according to the new physical laws she helped create. Is she alive? The president pressed. By any meaningful definition, yes, Dr. Eskel answered, stepping forward. But in a form we can barely comprehend. She's become something between human and something else. A guardian of the boundary, ensuring it remains stable. The Federation's top physicist, Dr. Rivan Zai, added, We've begun detecting signals from within the Genesis zone, mathematical patterns too complex to be random. We believe Admiral Voss is communicating with us, providing insights into technologies that could function under both sets of physical laws. So we've created not just a defense against the Vraxians, but potentially a pathway to a new stage of human development, the president asked. More than that, Dr. Eskel replied. The Genesis zone represents an entirely new frontier, not just of space, but of existence itself. Admiral Voss has become its first explorer. The president stood, addressing the council. Then let history record this. The Vraxians came to harvest humanity for their evolution. Instead, we discovered our own evolutionary path. They sought to use us as raw material. We transformed ourselves into something they could never comprehend. 1 year later, the first research outpost was established at the Genesis boundary. Scientists reported strange phenomena, mathematical principles revealed in dreams, theoretical breakthroughs appearing simultaneously to multiple researchers, as if guided by an unseen hand, and occasionally, on the communication systems, a familiar voice would speak briefly, different somehow, vaster yet recognizably that of Lysithea Voss. We stand at the threshold of something magnificent, her voice told them during one such communication. Not the end of humanity, but its next beginning. The Vraxians sought to consume us because they feared what we might become. They were right, to fear. Across the transformed region of space that had once been a battlefield, new stars began to form from the reconfigured matter of the Vraxian fleet, beacons of light born from what had been intended as humanity's extinction. The final battle had ended. Humanity's next chapter had begun. The end.